Good morning. I am Pierre Lévy, and you can follow me on Twitter at Lévy. Okay, I am very happy to be here with you. And first, I will ask not to take photo with flashes, please. No flashes. You can take photos, but no flashes because it disturbs me. The subject of my talk will be the algorithmic medium and its content. I have added content because we are in the RioContentMarket. So, the first thing that I would like to stress is the speed of the change in the digital medium. And I call it the algorithmic medium. You will understand why a little bit later. But we have to, why is it important to measure the speed of evolution? Because this speed is not only in the past, it will be also in the future. Okay, it's a movement. And if we are able to measure the speed of the past evolution, we will have an idea of the speed of the future evolution. Okay? This is why I want to stress this point. So first, how many people are connected? 20 years ago, there was less than 1% of the global population that was connected to the internet. Okay? Today, 20 years later, that is one generation, one small generation, we have 35% of the world population that is connected. Okay. This is a huge augmentation in only 20 years. And the growth of the connection rate augmentation is augmenting. Okay? So this means that in a few years, we will have reached half of the global population connected. First point. Second point, all the people who are connected can very easily emit informations, create, emit, and receive information. Okay. This is a tremendous empowerment for people, being able to communicate with virtually the whole global population, and also to be able to receive information from people all around the world. This did not exist 20 years ago. Okay. Just to give you some dates, WordPress was, and at the time it was not well known as it is now, was created in 2003. YouTube was created in 2005. Facebook became public, I mean open to people other than students in, I don't remember the name of the exact university, but it became open to the public, and Twitter was created in 2006. Okay, it's not very long. Okay, we are not speaking in terms of generations here. It's less than 10 years. And you can see already that these very, very young communication institutions are already dominating the landscape of online communication. So it goes very fast. This means that maybe what will dominate the landscape of communication in 10 years or in 20 years, you don't know, we don't know. But there will be some tremendous changes. And I would like to say something also about the material aspect. Today, the computing power is not in our laptops or tablets or smartphones or so on anymore. It's not in our hands. It is in the cloud. We say in the cloud, but in fact we mean in huge data centers that are like factories of computing. Okay? Huge buildings, tens of thousands of PCs interconnected with big cables generating a lot of warmth, and you need to refrigerate all these data centers. Okay? And there are a lot of data centers all around the world. Okay? These data centers are the real computers of today. And everything we have in our hands is just a kind of interface to communicate with these data centers. Just to give you an idea, no one has his or her Facebook data on his or her computer. Okay, no one has his or her Facebook application on his computer or his smartphone. Everything is run in the cloud. Okay. And if you think about this, the iPhone was released in 2007 and the iPad in 2010. Okay? We are in 2014. So this is just 4 years ago. And you can see that everybody has a smartphone and everybody has a tablet now. Or an imitation, okay? So, no, I'm not an Apple fan. So now we have seen that this is evolving very fast. Second aspect, and this is what I call the algorithmic medium. Okay, let's try to understand the nature of this new medium of communication. Because as you know, we are all interested here in content, but the content is interdependent with the medium, of course. Okay? So, what is this medium? I try to characterize it with only 3 important features, but we have to think about these 3 features together, because the meaning of every feature is connected to the meaning of the 2 others. First feature, ubiquity. This means that you can access to information from almost everywhere. and especially when there is Wi-Fi. Okay. It means also that when you put something on the web, somewhere, it is on a particular server that is physically located in one country and so on. When you put information somewhere on the web, it is accessible from everywhere. Okay? This is completely new, did not exist before this medium. Okay? So when it is somewhere, it is everywhere. This is the notion of ubiquity. Second aspect, general interconnection. Okay, the most well-known, this is the most well-known aspect of this new medium. And let's say the first, the most immediate is interconnection between people. Okay, every one of us can be connected in real time with any other people on the planet, by email, by SMS, by Twitter, by Facebook, by everything you want. Okay? We are all interconnected. And it is free. This is very important because you can say, yes, but in the 20th century there was telephone. Okay, but you had to pay for the telephone. Okay? But once you have your connection to internet, and maybe you have to pay for this connection, the communication is not directly related to the distance. Okay? You enter into a communication medium where the distance is not relevant. This is very important. So interconnection between people. Interconnection between documents. And this is the essence of the World Wide Web. Any web page can be connected by a hyperlink to any other web page. Even better, let's say you have two web pages. They are not interconnected by a hyperlink, but you can ask a particular query on Google, and in the response, you have these two web pages that show up on the same page of response. So any kind of information can be connected or reunited through a question, through a search engine. Okay, so you even don't know what will be the connection between two documents, but they can be connected. Okay. So all the people are connected, all the documents are virtually connected. This means that there is one single big hyper document that is constantly in flux, in transformation. And of course, the people and the documents are connected, if they want. I mean, the people. Okay. And the third aspect is the ability to transform automatically information. Okay. We tend to think that the most important aspect of this new medium is the ability to send and receive information. But send and receive information was already there with telephone, with even with the postal systems, with the printing press. Okay. The most important and the newest aspect is the automation of symbol manipulation. This is the software. This is the algorithms. Okay. And we are just at the beginning of the exploitation of this new feature. Okay. So now we have to think these three things together: ubiquity, general interconnection, and mechanization of symbol manipulation, of information transformation, of computing, in fact. Okay. We are just at the beginning of this new, of the cultural exploration of this new medium. Okay, it's like we are at the end of the 15th century, just after Gutenberg have invented the printing press. Okay, we still have not seen the Renaissance, but there will be a Renaissance. Okay, it's in the future. Or another big comparison is that of the invention of writing. Okay, 5,000 years ago, with all the civilization that goes with it. Okay, like the state, agriculture, written laws, justice, the beginning of literature, the beginning of science, and so on. If you had, let's say, asked to people living at the time of Julius Caesar, at the time of the Roman Empire, what will the future look like? They could not at all imagine things like cars or planes or computers or nuclear power plants and things like this. It's completely impossible to even imagine this. And I think that probably we are at this stage. We cannot imagine what it will be in 1 or 2 generations. Okay, this is the algorithmic medium. And now, I would like to speak a little bit about the data. In fact, the data is okay, there are 2 big kinds of content from the point of view of the algorithmic medium. And these 2 contents are the data and the algorithms. Okay, I don't speak about the people because people are not content. But, you know, we speak about user-generated content. And in the social media, the most important content are the people themselves. Okay. But let's speak about the data, and let's see how this data is closely related to the people. These are some interesting trends that I am currently observing. Okay. First, you have, I think the majority of you know this very well, the notion of crowdsourcing. What is crowdsourcing? It's the idea that one particular content is created by a lot of people that are dispersed all around the world by crowds, if you want. Okay. The best known example is Wikipedia. Okay. Wikipedia is crowdsourced. It means that it has millions of authors, but also millions of editors. Okay. So you have a lot of people that gather around a particular content and they create, they improve, and so on. So the data is not only the content, in a way it is the medium through which the people are coordinating and interacting. But Wikipedia is just one example. So you have a lot of different other examples in business, in I don't know, even in literature and so on. The notion of open science. What is open science? It is this idea that the data that you have gathered to study something, be it in biology or in physics or in astronomy, this data should be put online and created completely open for other scientists to use it. Okay. Also, the tools that you use to analyze these data, the algorithms, are also open and they are at the disposal of everybody. Okay. And you have conversations around the tools, around the data, between the people, between the scientists, to discuss what are the real results. Okay, it's a new way to do science. And there is, in this new way to create science, creates a conflict with the traditional science publishers. Okay, because they want to sell the papers, and the movement of open data says, and open science say, no, the results has been already funded by taxes, so it's public money, so the results should be open. Okay. Another, and this is a sub-field of open science, it's called digital humanities, because we are accustomed to this notion of computing in the natural sciences, but there is also a growing use of data and algorithms in the humanities and social sciences. So, for example, people take traditional text, they digitize these texts, they edit them, they put it online, open, they create tools to analyze these texts, and all this is at the disposal of the whole community, and there is a use of social media to conduct collaborative research. Okay. In journalism also, so let's say there are two trends, but they are interconnected. There is one trend that is called data-driven journalism, where the journalists take the data that are open from the governments, for example, or even from some companies, or they gather the data themselves, and they analyze the data, they create beautiful visualization, and this ends online with text and interactive visualization. So instead of asking questions to people like this, they work on data. And the other aspects of this renewed journalism is called social journalism, and here it's the practice to use the social media to gather information and also to disseminate information. or to create communities that are interested about a particular subject. In education, of course, you have a huge transformation that is currently occurring because all the young people, the students, are using these smartphones and these tablets and these social media. And a lot of teachers are trying to put some interesting data on these tablets and smartphones to make the, let's say, to import the school into the algorithmic medium where the young people already are. Okay. I am doing this in my own teaching. For example, I always, every course that I teach, I open a Facebook group, and the students are allowed to publish photographs and texts and websites in this Facebook group. Of course, it has to be related to the subject of the course. And they can create documents, they can work collaboratively on documents. Also, we use Twitter to publicize our activity outside of our class. We use different tools, like, for example, Scoop It, to do a watch on particular subjects and to accumulate data in the long run. So I try to use all these tools, but instead of using it just to have fun, we have fun, but also we are learning collaboratively. Okay. And finally, this leads to a synergy between what a lot of people call personal knowledge management and social knowledge management. Personal knowledge management means that you use all these tools to manage your own learning. You frequent social media to see who are the interesting sources. You accumulate or you filter the most interesting information. You do analysis, synthesis. You publish your synthesis on your blog, for example, and then you publicize what you have published on your blog on the social media. You wait for feedback, and so on. So you manage your learning online. You make it public in a way. And if you have a group of people that are doing this together, it becomes collaborative learning. Okay? So it's social knowledge management or collaborative learning, but it works bottom up. Okay, from the activity of the people. Of course, you need some people to lead them or to do the animation of the community, but it's not teaching the traditional way, and it works. You know the MOOCs, the famous MOOCs, it can be very traditional distance teaching or distance learning, but you have also, it's a minority, you have also very innovative practices that are called connectionist MOOCs, where all the students participate to the creation of the teaching material or the learning material. This is very interesting. So you see that there is some directions here that I think we should encourage. Now, I would like to characterize a little bit the kind of communication that occurs in this algorithmic medium. I call it stigmergic communication. The word stigmergic comes from ethology, and it's a kind of communication that is used by the ants or the bees. It means that, okay, for example, you have an ant and she's walking and she finds something good to eat. So she takes a little bit and she goes back to the ant hill. In going back to the ant hill, she leaves a path of pheromone traces, okay? And then she goes back where there is something good to eat, and she goes back again to the ant hill. So there is a huge path of pheromones. The ant does not say to the other ants, hey, there is something very good here. She's just leaving some traces. She modifies the environment. But by modifying the environment, she creates a message for the other. It's a common environment. So by the transformation of the common environment, all the ants are communicating together. It's a little bit the same process in the algorithmic medium. For example, when you create a link between your website and another website, okay, you transform the structure of the hyperlinks and you augment the chances for this or that website arriving on the top of the results of Google. Or when you buy a book on Amazon, okay, you are probably contributing to the suggestion of this book to buy by someone who has the same story of buying books, okay? Or when you use a particular hashtag on Twitter, you transform the trending topics and you, anytime you transform the structure of the relations between data, okay? Everything we do online, we transform the relations between data and we transform the common memory. So there is a kind of responsibility that comes with this. We don't realize it, but anytime we write something or we do something online, this triggers algorithms, okay? It transforms some things. We are programming the memory even if we don't know. And in all the ways to programming the memory, one of the most important is the classification or the organization of data. Traditionally, there was librarians. When a book was arriving at the library, they were categorizing this book and putting it in some categories, on some shelves and so on, giving a cut, I don't know. But today, we are all doing this, even if we are not librarians. Okay? Everybody can use a hashtag on Twitter, but this is an act of categorization, of organization of the memory. Okay? I would say, when we are writing a tweet with a link, the link is like the data, and what we have written in the tweet is the metadata. It's a characterization of the data. So we are always doing this without taking ourselves as librarians, but that's what we are doing. So it's a kind of democratization of the organization of the memory. And finally, this is very old trend of, I mean old, 20, 30 years, what has been called the virtualization of institutions. More and more, the institutions like companies, like governments, like schools, like everything you want, political parties and so on, are not organized around buildings, but are more and more often organized around their data, their metadata, and their algorithms. Okay, this is the core identity of any institution. And inevitably, the conflicts and even the wars now are about these things. You know, cyber war, you destroy the data of the enemy and so on. Or political conflicts, how do you characterize this or this event? So there are wars of metadata on the social media to evaluate or categorize one particular political event. Okay. So that's what I call a data-centric society. Okay? You know, data-centric because the common environment that is transformed socially is an environment of data. Okay. Okay, this is my political program. Foster, one, two, three, four, five, six, only 6 revendications, but it's not revendications. I'm not asking this to one particular political or economic power. No, that's something that we can do, we should do, every one of us, okay? We should work in this direction. The first one is symmetric transparency. You know that big governments and especially spying agencies are spying on us. Some people are very angry about this, but finally they are spies, so what are they supposed to do? And even they are paid to do this, so they do this. Okay. But what we should ask is to have the maximum of transparency back from the governments. Okay. Probably we will not have a total transparency, but everything that we can gain is good. Transparency from the governments and also from the big companies, and especially the big companies for whom we are transparent, like Google, Facebook, and so on. We are transparent. because they can read our email, they know everything we buy, and so on. So they should be almost as transparent for us that we are for them. Okay? That's what I call symmetric transparency. Grow the commons. Okay. This just means that we should have as much open public data as we can. Okay? Because on this open public data, we can build learning, we can build analysis, we can create knowledge, and so on. And a knowledge that will be open, transparent. Other people can replicate what we do on these open data, and so on. So it's more scientific. There can be no science in the secret. Okay? Science means openness, transparency. So let's grow the commons. Give back their data to the people that produce them. Okay, and this is particularly aimed at Google, Facebook, Twitter, and so on. They use our data to make money. This is fine because we don't pay for these services. So they have to make money in a way or in another. But I think that they should bring us back something of this immense quantity of data that we give them, to give us a kind of image of what we are, not only individually, but of what we are together. Okay. My big utopia is a utopia of reflexive collective intelligence. Not only collective intelligence, but reflexive collective intelligence. This means that we should be able to have an image of what we do and the way we think together. These big amounts of data, you can use them to extract relevant information or knowledge if you want. But you need very powerful tools to do it. And today, these tools are in the hands of big scientific laboratories, big governments, big companies. They are not in the hands of the general public. Okay. If we want to make something useful from all these data, we should have the tools to do big data analysis. It's a little bit, you know, the situation in the 50s and the 60s of the previous century, when only very rich government and very rich companies had computers. Okay. And 20 years later, everybody could have personal computers. So the power of computing went into the hands of the people. Now, it's a new threshold, it's a new step. And I think that we should ask and work to have, to make a better use of all these data. Critical thinking, this is for all times, okay? But so don't believe everything that is said. No. The previous critical thinking was, it's not true because it is printed. Okay? Today, it's not true because it is on the internet. Okay? You should be able to assess the quality of the sources. You should be able to check what is said here with what is said elsewhere. Okay, cross-check. All the journalists know this. But now this skill of the journalist, every citizen should have it, because we all have a lot of sources and we should be able to compare them. And finally, what I said, let's augment collective intelligence by making it reflexive. This assumes that you have critical thinking and digital literacy, that we have tools for big data analysis, that we have the data, that there are a lot of commons at our disposal, and so on. Okay? Let's say that the first 5 points are the conditions for the next, for the last one. Okay? And now I have 3 slides. It will become a little bit difficult. So those who are afraid, you're not obliged to stay. Because if we think about reflexive collective intelligence, we are obliged to think about cognition. Okay? Collective intelligence is collective cognition. And if I am serious when I am saying this, I have to define what is cognition, okay? And how to represent cognition in the algorithmic medium. Because if I cannot do this, there will be no reflexive collective intelligence. Okay? It's not just an empty slogan. It's a scientific research program. So what do we have in our heads? Ideas. Okay? In fact, it's not in our heads, because in our heads we have neurons. We don't have ideas. We don't know where are ideas. They are in our minds, not in our head. Okay. I define an idea as concept plus affect plus percept in a social context. Concept in words. There is a kind of discourse in our mind, continuous discourse. Try to stop it. You'll see it's not easy. So we have concepts. We have affects, emotions. We like, we hate, and so on. We cannot have any mental state that is not colored by any kind of emotion. There is always some kind of emotion. And finally, percepts, something that we see or hear or touch or some physical sensation of any sort. And this in a particular social context. Okay. How am I going to translate this into the algorithmic medium? Okay. The concept will be the category, the hashtag, if you want, the way to categorize data. The data will be the percept, and the affect will be the value that I give to the data categorized like this. For example, like, okay, this is good, dislike, this is not good. Okay. And the social context is the social context in the social media, of course, because it's reflected in the internet. So we can create ideas, okay? And What is cognition? It's some ecosystems of ideas. Okay, ideas that are self-referential. What does it mean? It means it can say I or us. They can refer to themselves. Our ideas refer to themselves, or to refer to some that is us. Okay? And this can grow, can reproduce, can evaluate, can communicate, and it lives in ecosystems. There is no cognition in isolation, especially for the humankind. Okay, we are always together, we are always in communication, and so on. Okay. So, let's say that we have a new kind, and here I am trying to imagine what is not imaginable, okay? Let's say that we have a new kind of social media, and when we interact in this new kind of social media, we are categorizing data, and we are saying, I like, I don't like, and so on. But the result of our actions in this social medium is that we grow ecosystems of ideas that represent what we think. Okay? And these ecosystems of ideas will be displayed around any person, any object, any work of the mind, like a book, a picture, a film, anything. And they will grow of the spontaneous cognitive activity of people. And we will be able to filter and select. For example, I am interested by what these people are saying about that. And we will see the ecosystem of ideas corresponding to our request. Or the ecosystem of ideas about this place from the end of the 20th century until now. And we will see the corresponding ecosystem of ideas. It will look like a kind of hologram. We will be able to see these holograms by Google Glass, or maybe it will not be Google. So it will be like in augmented reality. It will be everywhere. But it will be also in the virtual world, I mean in the web. And instead of, you know, this Second Life website, okay, they reproduce the 3D environment in a virtual website, okay? And I don't find this very interesting. These ecosystems of ideas will not be in a 3D space. It will be in a semantic space, okay? A space that contains ideas, in a world of ideas. So it will be a different geometry, translated for us, of course. We will interact with it in 3D, but it does not represent physical objects. It will represent ideas and their relations, okay, their dynamics. And for me, the most interesting will be the symbiosis between communities, group of people, and their ecosystems of ideas. As communities, we will be able to see how we think together. And being able to see this, we will also be able to improve our cognitive process. Okay. So this is the reflexive collective intelligence. So now this is the most complex of all. It's more and more, but it's the last slide. Okay. I'm finishing on the content because, as you know, the content is the content is king. You know? So, let's first think about the cognition as I have described it. It will take the form of ecosystems of ideas around communities, people, objects, places, works of the mind, and so on. Like a big universal encyclopedia, but completely perspectivist. You can see it from the angle, from the point of view that you want. Okay? It will be categorized in a universal computable meta-language, because one of the reasons why we still don't have this is that our categorization systems, like hashtags and so on, are not computable. They are all in natural languages that are not computable, and all these natural languages are different, by the way, and so on. So you cannot make semantic computation on it. So there will be a meta-language for the metadata, okay, that will help create automatically the semantic relationships. And it will create these relationships like semantic circuits, okay, virtual, of course. And in these semantic circuits, there will be a semantic current that will flow, that will correspond to the affective or to the evaluation aspect. Okay, so it's very dynamic. And this will be explored in a semantic sphere. You will explore it in 3D, but it's not a 3D that is mimicking the physical space. It will be a 3D that will create a representation for the semantic space that usually is invisible. Okay. Okay. The communication. The communication will be, or let's say, will tend towards interoperability. The communication will not be compartmentalized between languages or between different, like, I don't find the word in English. But you know, you have Facebook here, you have Twitter there, and you have another platform here, and you cannot communicate between the different platforms and so on. No. There will be a way to communicate in a transparent way across different platforms. Okay. And we will be much more conscious, aware than today that everything that we say or do online is, in fact, a programming act. Okay? Because already today, what we do is triggering algorithms. But it will be much more obvious in the future. And our child will learn this, will learn to program the environment. And there will be communication systems, languages that will be much more easy to use than the current programming languages, but that will program the environment. Okay. They will create signs that will have robotic powers. So this will be the languages that we will use. The context will be geo-localized and completely in interaction with augmented reality, you know, the web of objects and so on. And finally, we will be engaged in a lot of games, just for fun, or to work, or to learn, or... I think that the current direction towards gamification will continue, probably in less, sometimes stupid ways that it is done today, but it will continue. And finally, from the economic point of view, I think that the cryptographic monies or currencies, like, you know, Bitcoin and so on, this trend will continue. You know what is cryptographic money? No, look on Wikipedia. No, this is interactive. No, it's money that does not depend from a government, but depends from very secure algorithms. Okay, that's the basis of the idea. It's money to be used on the internet, but nobody can steal your credit card number. That's the basis of it. Okay. And the new capital will be the algorithms and the data, of course. One part of this capital will be open public, and one other part will be private, of course. And the work will be collaborative. Collaborative learning, collaborative design, collaborative programming, and so on. So, of course, this will not suppress all the other parts of economy. There will be always agriculture, industry, and so on. But I am speaking about what is specially linked to this algorithmic medium. Okay, so you have here a kind of image of the directions we are heading for. Okay. Reflexive collective intelligence, ecosystems of ideas everywhere, programming languages, always connections with geolocalized augmented reality, and new integrated digital information economy. Okay. Thank you very much. In principle, there is no question, but... Would you like to open for questions? Yes, yes. Okay.
Thank you. How do you think it's going to be our relation with the nature? Are we going to use it only for us to survive, or are you going to play with it? Or are you going to leave it, you know?
Well, I hope that it will not be only for surviving. Well, basically, we will be the consciousness of the biosphere, okay? Because the human species is currently the main factor affecting the evolution of biosphere. We are more and more conscious about this. So I think that in the future we will close the loop and fully realize this. So we will be in conscious interdependence with the biosphere. That's what I see. And it will be easier than now to understand the feedback loops and what are the effects of what we do on the biosphere and how these effects will come back to us.
Hi, Mr. Lévy. You're talking about cognition, but in this case, don't you think we also have to take in consideration the human factor? That, for instance, in Brazil, we don't have the same media of internet access for everyone. So how can you make plans first for this kind of a better behavior of the internet, like with the transparency and other kinds of changes in our, communication ways. But in Brazil, you don't have all the population connected. I mean, it's not only Brazil, but you have around the world many difference in this, access to this communication, this new way to communicate. And secondly, when you're talking about cognition, you definitely are talking about, the human factor, because it's different from society to society and space to space. So what I'm asking is, can we really think about one way to change the way internet is our, new medium of communication, or are we talking about very different realities around the world, and this is just one idea that, is still not proper for the whole reality we are living?
Okay. Ça marche plus. Okay, well, it does not work anymore. Bon, laisse tomber. Okay. There are several questions in your question. The first one is about the... it works. Thank you. The first one is about the digital divide. When I began to speak about this 20 years ago, there was only less than 1% of the population that was connected. So there was not one question like yours. There was 100 questions like yours, exactly. And I was condemning Africa to being completely separated from the rest of the world, and the same for Latin America, and I was someone who was speaking only for the Western rich people and so on. What we have to understand is that you cannot have 100% of the population connected to the internet from day one. It is just impossible. You need at least 1 or 2 generations, materially. You cannot do in another way. And of course, it begins with the rich and it ends with the poor. It's like the swimming pools. At the beginning, only very rich people had swimming pools close to their house, and now even some people from the middle class have swimming pools close to their house. Okay, it will take time. This is the first thing. But the question of the digital divide is not, in my opinion, the most important one. Because even people who have no computers or no smartphone, there are less and less people with no smartphones, by the way. But the most important is the most important is not only the digital literacy, but the literacy itself. Okay, so even if you have all the available, all the material that is free and available, if you have no literacy, it will be of no use. Okay, what I am saying is not to say, oh, we don't need human development anymore because we have the internet. No, that's not what I am saying. What I am saying is, let's use the internet in the service of human development. Okay? That's what I am saying. And if you, this was one of your question. And the second question was about, if I have understood, is there one single way for the development for the future? The direction that I am showing at is reflexive collective intelligence. This means that any kind of intelligence you have, and it can be very, very, there can be a big variety of cognitive shapes or developments. It will be reflexive. So I'm not saying that everybody should think the same way. I'm saying whatever the way you think, you should be able to observe it. Do you see the difference? It's like a mirror. A mirror does not oblige you to think or to have a particular look. No, it just reflects your look. So I think it's the best way to respect the extraordinary variety of human cultures.
Hello here. Hello. When I think of the failure of Esperanto, I get really optimistic with the universal meta-language you were talking about, because I believe algorithms is the proper language that could be universal. And that forecast you presented us, at present, really conflicts with national homeland security and the interest of companies that at the moment really have the access to the metadata and can manipulate it. So that utopia, you began saying it was utopic, but how can you see, how can you analyze that development of going on this path of having a universal meta-language and data as capital, with, you know, breaking up with national boundaries for real?
Well, you know, breaking national boundaries, it's already done. This is not utopia. I communicate with people from all around the world on Twitter, and it's very, very easy. It's already done. But now the problem is not only the exchange of messages, it's the semantic interoperability. Because there are, for example, I can understand Portuguese, but I cannot understand Chinese, okay? So if there was this kind of meta-language, it would be easier to communicate. It has almost nothing to do with how do you call this language that Esperanto, okay. It has nothing to do with Esperanto, because Esperanto was supposed to be spoken by people, and this universal meta-language is not supposed to be spoken by anyone. It's a code, okay? It's at the level of the code, and people will use their own natural language to communicate. And Esperanto was almost exactly like any other natural language, except that it's an artificial language. But my meta-language has a computable semantics, so there is something fundamentally different, because it adds a lot of power to the language. So, and it works, okay? At least at the theoretical level, I have all the mathematical demonstrations, it works. So it's just a question of time. So I'm very confident. Homeland security, oh.
I'm just asking that if data has a universal language, and if that cognition is collective, and we reach to this future, we'll have access and we'll have access also to interpret and analyze information, data from everywhere, including national data from China and Homeland Security and corporations could be, you know, so how can you
No,
see
I
that?
don't think that the information intelligence agencies will participate to this openness. No, they are not stupid. No, I mean not to this point. Last question, if there is one. Okay.
Hi, Mr. Lévy. My name is Luana Genot, and I would like to know what would be the advantages for the companies to augment the collective intelligence. In other words, what would be the advantages for the companies to share their big data? Your opinion.
They'll have to find one. They are very clever. I'm, you know, what is the advantage for the telecom companies to share their servers in order that everybody communicates through the internet? They do it. Okay? Public good is not necessarily opposed to private gain. There could be a common advantage. No, but I'm not speaking now with a company. I'm speaking to the general public. If I was speaking, for example, with Twitter, I have a lot of ideas, okay? Maybe if they use my system, they will augment their customers and they will augment their advertising revenues. Why not? You see, this is just an example. There is no fundamental opposition between public goods and private gain. But what I am concerned about is public good. Okay, this is my job. But private company, let them do their job. That's it. Goodbye.